This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Whether you need a domain, website, or online store, make it with Squarespace. So Preston, you're the theory guy. Like on YouTube, when it comes to Game of Thrones stuff, you are the grand master, the Mac Daddy of Game of Thrones theories. I know there have been one or two channels before you came on the scene, but ever since you came on the scene like 5 years ago now, 4 years ago, you've been the one guy that does Game of Thrones theories. In fact, I never even touched it because when it comes to like what you do, I you know, it's your expertise, not mine, whatever. And over the years, you've done a lot of theories. I'm sure you've seen a bunch of them as well that you haven't covered. But I have to ask you, and I know you're very neutral. Even when we talk off microphone, you're very neutral and you're very, nice. There has to be a theory that you've heard that you just don't like, that you just maybe hate is too much of a strong word, but there has to be a theory that you just do not like whatsoever.
Well, it's funny. Like, I like theories. Like, some theories I don't believe, but I like them because there's textual basis to them and they make a lot of sense. Like I really, even though Euron equals Dario isn't true, like I really liked that theory because it had a lot of basis. Then there's ones that have a lot of basis that are just crazy and wrong, even though they've. So, for instance, there's a Howland Reed is the High Sparrow theory,
Right.
Which it has so much textual basis. Like the person worked so hard on it, it's just wrong. Like it's just, I mean, it's not that they didn't try. It's not that they didn't put in all the work.
You just don't.
And then
agree
there's
with
ones, and then there's the ones that I don't agree with is just that I don't like. Tend to either have like no support. They're just an idea. Like for instance, Euron is Benjen or Benjen is Dario. Like
I was about to mention that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no textual support for that, so you just pulled it out. It's like, well, maybe, but there's no support. And then there's ones that are just kind of sloppy, and the only ones that are like today, if you do a sloppy theory, no one's really going to listen to you.
Right.
You have to really have a lot of evidence. But back in the day, in the early days of theory crafting, anything would kind of just be believed, because there weren't that many theories. And so there was one that always, not that many people believe it or follow it, but like it's on these lists of grand theories, and one is called the Grand Tyrell conspiracy.
The Grand Tyrell experience.
I'm sorry, the Grand Tyrell conspiracy.
Right, yeah. What can you, real quick, sum it up what that is?
The Grand Tyrell conspiracy is essentially that everything that happened to Cersei in A Feast for Crows was really the Tyrells like messing with her, like down to that the Myronese woman who comes to visit her, what's her name?
Is it Teyana of Myr?
Yeah,
Teyana Merriweather?
Yes. Yeah. Like everything she did and like all of these little things and everything that the High Sparrow was doing, like it was all just in the background, this orchestrated thing by House Tyrell to mess with Cersei. And it's a very long theory, and it's just not textually supported. Like, it's just, okay, all of these people are working together. What makes you think that all of these people are working together? Like, show me the evidence. And there's not much of it. And actually, the original Grand Northern Conspiracy is also kind of sloppy.
Okay, this is what I wanted to talk to you about. Real quick, tell me what the current Northern Conspiracy is, and tell me what you didn't like about the original. Like, what makes it different? What's the current? Because I know there's a new one, and you covered it, right?
Right. I did a series called. It's 2 videos. It's called Cold Conspiracies, where I go into the conspiracies, the possible conspiracies of the North, and how complicated it is. It's not that there aren't conspiracies in the North. But the original theory for the Grand Northern Conspiracy is a very sloppy theory. And it just got a little too big. And people liked it because it was a kind of unifying thing that made all of these different plot threads, make sense and be cohesive. But it's not really supported.
Well, we're not going to go into too much detail on it, but sum it up what it really is. The original.
So the original one, the original Grand Northern Conspiracy, is that all of the houses in the north and the Riverlands are secretly backing Jon as king.
In the books.
And that in the books. And that everything that they've been doing up until this point has been a lie. They're not really supporting Ramsay or Roose or Stannis or anyone else, or the Freys or the Lannisters. They're all secretly trying to put Jon on the throne
because he's the last person with Stark blood.
It boils down to Robb's will. They believe that Robb's will and that Robb, they believe it assumes that Robb's will names Jon. And it assumes that everybody is just kind of in on this, including Lady Stoneheart, including Catelyn.
Resurrected Catelyn is also in on this. Okay,
right. It's over especially the Riverlands part, just throwing in the Riverlands willy nilly. Oh yes, the Brotherhood without banners is all for Jon, out of nowhere, despite the fact that they spend a lot of time trashing Northerners in their speech. The Brotherhood without banners rhetoric is anti-Northern. They say that these Starks, the woods are filled with Starks and lions and things like that, or wolves and lions and things like that. They're not fans of the North. They don't necessarily think that it was a good thing that the Riverlands got dragged into the War of the Five Kings behind Robb. But the Great Northern Conspiracy, the original Great Northern Conspiracy, essentially just says, no, everybody is secretly for Jon. And that's just,
And the new one, what does the new one change up about this?
So over time, people did a lot more analysis of what is really going on. And it's not that, and certain houses are going to, one thing that the Great Northern Conspiracy, linked into is, yes, there seems to be communication and secret things going on between houses that are fishy. But the question is what? And so I think through most analysis and most fans agree that there's some sort of conspiracy going on between the Manderleys and the Umbers. And so on a basic level, you can kind of say, well, there's a Manderley-Umber conspiracy. Well, you can start with Manderley. We know there's a Manderley conspiracy because Manderley admits that he's conspiring to Davos. So you can start with, okay, there's a Manderley conspiracy. That's just a fact. We had a whole, there's a whole, storyline with Davos about it. And then the question is how large does that conspiracy branch out? And then what's that conspiracy's endgame? In the book, Manderley claims that his endgame is Rickon Stark as Lord of Winterfell. Mm-hmm. So the Great Northern Conspiracy first says, no, that's bullshit. It's not really Rickon. He's lying. It's really for Jon. But so what we're presented in the book is that there's a Manderley conspiracy for Rickon, that he's not really following Roose, that he really wants Rickon. And so then he's got with him Robert Glover. And so there's the question of, okay, does he have the support of the Glovers behind him? We don't know because, first, Robert's not the Lord. And, but Robert's wife is, Castellan, and she's supporting Stannis. So then it gets kind of confusing. Mm-hmm. And then there's the question of, okay, the Umbers and the Manderleys have been busy building ships together since A Clash of Kings. So maybe there's an Umber Manderley conspiracy. So, I think there's pretty strong evidence of a Manderley Umber conspiracy. But the question is, are other houses part of this conspiracy? Are they doing things within Winterfell against the Boltons? It's about these loose connections and what can we prove mm-hmm. between the houses. And it's very hard to have anything definitive.
You know, I always ask you about theories you don't like, and you always give me a neutral answer because I know you don't want to be too mean about it, but you were telling me about one theory years ago, and it just sounded completely crazy, but we never got too much into it.
I mean, you mean besides John is Azor Ahai and all of that?
There's a theory that, because my general belief is that, like, Azor Ahai, like, whoever that is, always shifts from person to person. I heard one that Victarion is Azor Ahai.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think the whole fulfilling prophecy thing is, like, very interesting. I mean, maybe it's going to be the case, That's the thing, is, like, not liking it and probability of being true are two different things. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I don't like John being this freaking boring Jesus character, Like, I just...
in the books, it's okay for the show because the people who watch the show, they need that one character to be the main protagonist. The books are not like that.
Yeah, I mean, either one. Like, I just, I want something to be a little more interesting. I want him to be less conventional than just Johnny All-Star, whatever. Yeah, he's just so bland. Mm-hmm. I want something interesting to be about him. With his plot. I mean, the only thing we have that's interesting now is that, at least on the show, is that we find out that he's been secretly having sex with his aunt, and he's going to have to deal with that,
Well, the crazy one you were telling me about, you told me it was one of your favorites. Personally, I love the show theory about Bran being the Night King due to the time traveling and influencing we saw him do with Hodor. He's the reason that Dany's father went crazy. He's the reason the wall was built, and it was him who the children tried to, tie up and make into the Night King. That's why the man had the piece of cloth in his mouth. He was telling them that he's from the future and that the events to come, all this stuff. They didn't want to listen, so they gagged him, and now Bran is the Night King in that, like, time loop. I kind of like that.
Yeah, I do like that one. I mean, one of my favorites is Euron is Dario. Now, even though it's not true, it would be such a great twist that would have brought these disparate plot threads together.
Right.
And you would have just been puzzling. You would have sat there and puzzling the whole time. Like, how did he get from here to here and back? And oh my God, like, these two mysterious characters are the same people. It would bring everything together in a big twist. I thought it was a great theory that would have just made the story better. Let's see, ones that I really, really like. So I actually just talked about this one today when we were doing our
the premiere.
The premiere was was Benjen plus Liana equals John.
What?
I love it. Or Ned plus Liana equals
what?
John. And I'll tell you the like why the theory is why I like it and the evidence for it. So if you go back to a Game of Thrones or first season, the Ned story, there's two parts to the Ned story. There's the Ned story of him discovering who Robert is as a person. And then there's Ned uncovering Cersei's incest. Mm-hmm. And these two plots are going on at the same time, right? Him searching for Jon Arryn's murderer and the bastard and the book and all of these things. So he finds Gendry and he finds the book. And Gendry looks exactly like Robert, and he checks the book, and the book says that every time a Baratheon and a Lannister have a child, it has black hair. And so he has the proof. The seed is strong. Black hair is dominant. Gold hair, recessive. Proof that Robert is not the father of Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen. Mm-hmm. That's fine. But the problem is that Ned makes an additional jump that is not based on any logic. Just because Robert is not the father of Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen doesn't mean Jaime is. Ned out of nowhere, assumes, like, jumps to the conclusion that Cersei was banging her brother, and the children are Jaime's.
Right.
There's no textual support for how Ned made that conclusion. And if you actually sit there in real life and you think, like, if you were uncovering, like, infidelity and you found out, like, some woman had been cheating on her husband and her children, like, are not her husband's. Let's say you made that jump. Let's say you discovered that. Would you immediately assume she was fucking your brother?
No, like
that's a huge right. It would be like
Yeah.
the last thing on your mind.
Mhm.
Like, it's insane. Like, incest, like, just doesn't, like, it's just not that common.
Wait a minute.
Especially-
So what you're saying is the reason Ned came to the conclusion that Cersei was doing with Jaime is because he knows from experience from his time with Lyanna, his relationship with Lyanna. Is that what you're saying?
Right. So incest is on Ned's brain, and it's an immediate jump because he experienced it in his own life. Either because Brandon had sex with Lyanna, or Benjen had sex with Lyanna, or he had sex with Lyanna. And that's the twist.
Wait, this is a theory
you
you like?
Yeah. I just think that, oh my God, that would make, like, first of all, it would be brutal. Like, it would change everything, right? You just, like, you read it and you'd be like, oh my God, and you'd be shocked.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But say it were Benjen, it would explain why Benjen joined the Watch. You know?
Ugh.
You know, and it would explain why, like, Ned, like, why Lyanna would need Ned to promise to, like, raise Jon.
Right.
And it would explain why Jon has super Stark features, because he's doubly Stark. You know? So, you can see how, he would have reluctance to take care of this child, and so she would have to say, promise me, Ned, promise that you'll take care of him, even though he's the child of, me and Benjen, or me and Brandon,
Jesus
or whatever.
Christ,
or to
Preston.
explain, like, his hatred of his like, problem with Brandon, So it would create, like, it would also explain why he had some sympathy for Cersei and, like, wanted to let her go. It gave her that opportunity to get out of town that he shouldn't have given her, and all sorts of things. It answers a lot of questions, and it makes Ned's, like, moral situation more difficult, you know? And so that's why I like it, because it makes it more interesting.
Huh. That's
Kinda
a crazy theory. I've never heard that one before, ever. I never in a million years would even think that that's a thing.
Right. Now, do I think it's true? No. I think George R. R. Martin just fucked up, and there is no reason for Ned to be jumping to assuming that Cersei and Jaime are fucking. I mean, that's just ridiculous, but he put it in. Like, it was his fuck up. I think it was, I think it's author screwing up. But yeah.
Wow.
It would,
Preston, have you ever thought about making a website of your favorite theories and that you like and dislike and all that stuff?
I don't know. I could write something up.
Well, you're in luck, because Squarespace is a fantastic service that allows you to build your own website for all kinds of needs. Whether they be business or setting up that Game of Thrones meme website you've wanted to for so long, you'll be covered. They have brilliant templates you can use to make it look like a professional made them, and 24/7 award-winning customer service team are there to help you whenever you need it. There's nothing to install or patch or anything, and it's so easy to use, even your grandparents, who still don't know how the printer works, can do it. Now you're probably thinking, Preston and the audience of course, gee willikers, Carmine, that sounds awesome. And wait, it's about to get better, because right now if you head on over there you can start your free trial, and when you're ready to go, use my link for 10% off.
Well, that's pretty cool, Carmine.
That's right, Preston. They're so good, I'd rate them 5 Targaryen dragon heads out of 3. They're so good, they grow 2 more heads. Check them out, link below in the description. Okay, Preston, let's wrap it up. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. And Preston, thank you so much for disturbing me with that Ned and Lyanna thing. Jesus Christ.
Anytime,
I never
anytime.
would have thought of that in a million years. Guys, thank you for joining us on this special episode of the Game of Thrones podcast. We will see you next time with a continuation of Fire and Blood. Still ongoing, by the way. Still ongoing on Preston's channel. A lot of you guys have been asking, where has the podcast been? We're still uploading on his channel for Fire and Blood. Definitely check it out. I will leave a link in the description below. Once again, thank you so much for joining me, Preston. Thank you for Squarespace for sponsoring this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.